Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden channel. Today's video is the last video that I do in Germany before I head back to Poland, but this is something that I really wanted to do and share with you. I am in a park just north of Düsseldorf, so we are in the city of Duisburg, which used to be a very industrial city, and you might be like looking around, where is the park? And that is a good question, where is the park? This used to be an industrial area. This was an iron mill and it was operated for 48 years in total. It shut down in the late 80s, and then throughout the entire 90s, this entire area has been remodeled into a parkland. But they left most of the old buildings. Even 3 of the furnaces are still standing here. They opened up a lot of the buildings and they just opened this entire area for nature. So it is kind of like the concept of nature claiming back what has been made by man. And I think this is a rather intriguing and interesting project. According to The Guardian, this is one of the 10 best parks in the world, which honestly excited me a little bit. But let's see, I've been in this area a couple of years ago, but I haven't seen the entire park. So even though I'm kind of like discovering this entire park together with you now, I saw a couple of years ago, I think 7 or 8 years ago, there was a documentary on Gardener's World about it as well, where they really explained quite well how this entire area works. So if you're intrigued, I think you might be able to find it on YouTube as well. What I'm going to do is really find my way through here now and share what happens, how they transform this area, and really give you all the industrial vibe as well. Hope you're excited about today's video. This is an area full of cherry trees, and a friend of mine was here 2 weeks ago and she said you need to come because it is quite a spectacular sight. All the cherry trees, they were in pink bloom and it must have been great, but we just missed it. So sad, because just look at it. Imagine a cloud of pink in contrast with all these old industrial buildings. This is one of the furnaces, and what you can tell quite well here, what they did after the entire iron mill shut down, everything which is blue now has been built later on. So there are all these stairs that you can go all the way up there, and I try to see how far up we can go because you should have a quite spectacular view from up there. We're just standing next to one of the furnaces, and I think this is a rather intriguing sight and very hard to believe that all of this has been man-made. And also when you think about how old it is, I just said it reminds me a little bit of like Metropolis, like one of those like old futuristic movies from the 20s, how people imagine the future would look like. And it is clearly nothing with nature at all here, because this is all man-made. It's so interesting when you think about that this has been operated and that all of this was needed just to produce steel or iron. This park really is about meandering through and just taking in all the contrast of these old industrial buildings and nature taking over again. And I think this is just a beautiful example with the water, the reflection of these old buildings here. And you see how nature just reclaims back everything that used to be nature once. You have all these metal frames, they start to green up, and you just start questioning, what were they built for? You're not really sure about it, but it's very tranquil. And when you think about that, probably 50 years ago, this was such a busy site with workers everywhere, and now it is just a recreational area where you can just take a rest. And if we just walk up again, you get to see how this entire park works. So they planted loads of all different kind of trees to bring wildlife back in, and you really have a nice vista. Well, there's a school class in the back actually, so you also have a vista on those, but you get to see all these trees and then the furnace in the back and the old industrial metal frames there. I think it is really a very special and intriguing sight. There is a sign that gives all the information about the place that I just showed you, and there is even a high walk where I'm going to go up with you in a second. And I just read through what this is. This was called a sinter plant. Never heard of it before. I quickly read over it and I was like, okay, even that doesn't ring a bell on me. So it was something very industrial basically. But this is how it looked before they just tore down that sinter plant. And this is how it looks in summer. So you have this high walk here, and just some old buildings and some old parts are left, and they're underplanted with a lot of bloom. So I think in summer it will be a very beautiful sight with a lot of color in here. So what we want to do is walk up there now and see what I'm going to discover. I'm on the high walk with you now, and on the right you get to see this metal frame again and really how nature takes over. All these winding plants climbing up those metal frames, very intriguing. And if we continue walking to the left, there's a really nice tree structure, and then it opens up. And I remember when I saw the episode of Gardener's World where they were presenting this area, they also showed parts of this here, and this is quite intriguing because this is an area which I think is called the bunkers. And what they did, they opened up all the roofs, they filled it with soil, and they planted it up. So you get to see some pulsatilla down there still in bloom, and then two fields of lavender. There's one variety here and a second one over there. They're still watering, and it is just nice to see this harsh contrast of all the concrete with the plants, and you just explore this garden completely different because you are walking up here and you're staring down at it, and the garden almost becomes like an art installation. You don't walk into it, you just observe it from a complete different vista, and this is what makes this park so special and intriguing. As I walk along here, there is so much to discover, and you really have this momentum where you feel like, were those things planted on purpose, or is it literally nature taking over again? Suddenly this entire area is filled with a sweet scent of honeysuckle, such a beautiful variety, very delicate pale pink blooms, and you see how it just like tumbles up here through this entire area. It is kind of like a big jungle literally, and I feel this is literally the topic of this entire garden, when you suddenly don't really see all of those old industrial structures anymore because nature takes over completely. And then you have all these different garden rooms that you explore. So to the left there is this little hedge garden. Some of the yew hedges are not looking too good, to be fair, but I feel there's a lot of hydrangeas down there, so when they come to bloom it might be such an intriguing sight to look at them. You can't actually enter this part of the garden. I see a little gate there, so I think if we just walk along this area, at the end we can go down again and literally walk into these garden rooms, and this is exactly what I intend on doing with you now. As I said, I want to take you with me into one of these garden rooms, and as you step into them, you walk through the gate and you have these massive, huge concrete walls. And this is a quite good indicator about the microclimate that they've created in here, because this is a court completely surrounded by these very thick walls, and you can just grow pretty much whatever you want in here because there is literally always a nice, warm, sunny microclimate. And you get to see there are some climbing hydrangeas, if I'm not wrong. There is wine on the other side. If we continue walking, here's an evergreen clematis, which is also really beautiful. One of those plants that unfortunately I cannot plant in my garden because evergreens and Baltic winter, that is a little bit iffy and tricky sometimes. Boxwoods, they thrive extremely well, but laurel, for example, there is always a little borderline if it survives or not. But if we continue walking, you really get to have the opportunity to walk into these little garden rooms. And other than when you were up there on this walk that is just in my back now, here you can just explore this entire space, and you have these yew hedges. So if I swing around, they have created these like yew hedges as like cut lines diagonal through this garden space, and they have put hydrangeas on both sides, different varieties. And this is why I think this is so beautiful, because you get to enjoy the foliage in all different specimens. So here's one where you have really intriguing fluffy leaves, always great for a texture. And then in my back you have these absolute beautiful looking hydrangeas. These are like these typical macrofolia types with the ball flower heads, probably in pink. If the soil is acidic, they might be even blue as well. So let's see if I have the opportunity to come here again later on in the year. This might be just a very glorious sight indeed, and always great to explore those gardens for inspiration. And you can always go back and think about, what can I take with me into my own garden? This is literally such an intriguing parkland. You step around a corner and then you always discover something new. I love how they incorporate the element of water in here. You have these pipes coming out of these concrete walls, and then the sound of water immediately. No drinking water though, so Alfie is not allowed to take a sip here. And then you have the bearded iris in full bloom, and you know I love bearded iris, even though they are yellow and they are buttercup yellow, which is not my preferred kind of color, but I was like, oh, they are pretty. I mean, let's face it. And they're all different kind of roses. They're just coming back to life. A lot of them start to bud up already. So I think in a month from now, it would be so beautiful here because you get to enjoy all the blooms from the roses. And if you continue walking, there are more iris, and then we're getting closer to my color scheme, obviously. Maybe you get to see it already. There are some blooms in white and purple. Very small, delicate, dainty kind of blooms, but I love them. Intriguing dark purple, and then over here, They are very pretty. They really caught my attention. This greenish yellow tone and then with the white in the center, absolutely beautiful. Whenever people are talking about urban jungle, I think this is exactly it. We are in the city and I can even hear the sound of the highway in the distance, but at the same time I'm surrounded by the sound of birds, which is quite magical, and in my back you get to see the jungle. You can possibly not step in there. It's hundreds of hawthorns that are growing there. They're all in white bloom right now and they fill this area with their scent, which is quite distinct. They are sweetish and they are intriguing, but at the same time I think hawthorn smells a little bit fishy, which is an interesting smell for a shrub. Have you ever smelled on a hawthorn, and what do you think? Do you like it or not? Really intrigued to hear about it. If we continue walking, you get to see there is a little gate here, and suddenly there is another garden area that they created. And you walk through this tunnel of greenery, try to show you. There is a beautiful lilac to my right in bloom with pale violet blooms now, and another hawthorn on my left. And if we continue walking, we are approaching another garden area. Obviously, Alfie is with me today, and the beauty about this section of the park is that it's fully fenced in so she can run around freely. And I really want to take the moment and show you this area, because I think what they've done so beautiful here is to combine nature with all elements of the old industry. So you have these kind of rectangle beds that they have filled with plants and with some old parts from those buildings that they broke down. Here, for example, you have bricks that are overgrown with moss, and since I really love whimsical moments, I think this does exactly that. And if we continue walking, you get to see another hawthorn, two of them actually, a great structure, quite old. They are in full bloom already. Very beautiful leaves and topped by a lot of white bloom. So it is literally a cloud of white. Here comes Alfie running straight at me. She's very excited that she can run around in this area here. Some geraniums, they are just about getting into bloom, very delicate, always a beautiful underplanting if you have the right space in your garden. Some ferns for amazing structure. I always love ferns just for the texture that they bring to a garden, and especially in combination with a carpet of these geraniums. And if we continue walking, you get to see more of those rectangle beds that they have filled with, I think, some old tiles here and then some rusted steel. And I'll be walking just straight through it, but I mean, she doesn't do anything. Some grasses that are just coming back to life, and I think this is going to be very beautiful because then you have this soft texture of the grasses in combination with the steel and with the gravel. And next bed also works extremely well. You get to see more brick in there, and they put ferns in here, and I feel this is just another beautiful contrast of all these old bricks with concrete on it, and then those ferns just coming back to life with those leaves, little spirals. I really love when fern just opens the leaves again. In the back there, they're just watering that section, so I can't step in there, which doesn't really matter, because if we continue walking, just in front of you, there is a little woodland area, and I think that has been planted up just beautifully. In front of us, there is another cherry tree, clearly not in bloom anymore. All the blooms are just brown. I'm 2 weeks too late, next year around probably again. But I love woodlands, and I love all those plants that you can use in woodlands. And there's one that I have in my own garden that I clearly want to show you because I love it and I don't want to miss it, which is epimedium. And I think what they did here is they have mounted up the soil a little bit to get this beautiful half dome effect. And isn't it looking really lush green already? I feel epimediums are just one of those perfect plants that you can always use to underplant your trees. And then you have a lot of really beautiful examples of spring blooms, such as the Spanish bluebells here in a really beautiful pale blue tone, mixing and mingling with the grasses. A lot of perennials like phlox is just coming back there. And if we continue walking, you get to see some alliums, some first spheres are just about to open, aquilegias in here, all of my favorite springtime plants. And I just wanted to give you one last look at a Spanish bluebell that flowers in a pinkish tone. And whenever I see Spanish bluebells, I feel like, okay, I really need to find a space in the garden for them because I think they're just absolutely beautiful. They have this really lovely foliage and then these delicate stems with those beautiful flower spikes, and especially in this color, this really lovely blush pale pink, beautiful, exactly in the color scheme of my garden. So I think I can definitely find the perfect location for them in my own garden. That is it for today's video, and I'm so happy that we had nice weather and I really had the opportunity to show you around, because this park really symbolizes what Western Germany is about and was about, because the west of Germany was very industrial for many years, and this park just shows a transformation from an industrial area into a recreational area. And we are here during the week, and there are a lot of people. There is school classes, there are really people coming here just to have a little break and to enjoy nature, and I think this is just wonderful. This is exactly how cities can transform all of their old industrial areas into something that people can enjoy and have a pleasure time at. I just want to say thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope it was interesting for you, and I would love to welcome you in my garden then very soon again. Take care, guys. Bye.